Hi, class. You can always learn. And what I learned from COVID is that you can catch up on your TV. Anyway, yeah, I caught up on Rick and Morty. I really enjoyed it. And Rick Sanchez, I still consider to be my alter ego. Anyway, no, I have not abandoned you in this course. It only seems like if I could tell you one thing, I'm never teaching 8 courses again. God, I'm dying. Anyway, what's going on in this course is the first thing you have is a negotiation game. And I just want you to get a feel for negotiation. And so you learned all about these different techniques and everything else and rhetoric and things like that. And I know it's a lot to take in all at once. And this is my approach to teaching. And it's somewhat controversial, but this is the way MIT teaches. What some teachers do is they take a point and they just pound it into you. Professor Kennedy actually put it best. He said that you can either dig a ditch 1 square foot, 10 feet down, or 10 square feet, 1 foot down. But you can't do something in the middle, and I tend to do the 10 square feet. And this is why. You don't remember anything. You can do repetition over and over and over again and pound it into people. But if you don't use it, you're just going to lose it. And by doing that, you know very few things. On the other hand, when you go into covering a lot of different topics, and that's what my class does, yeah, you're going to forget it. But the thing is, this is what slides are for. And this is why everything is conceptually thinking. So really, all storytelling comes down to is that one red slide that tells you what all the steps are. Who's my audience? What's my objective? And so on. And of course, what's my payoff? And then the second one is always think of stories as points. And so it's all about what is this payoff point and how do I get from that point to the next point? That's what it is. When I give speeches or tell stories or something, students have asked me, can I see your speech? I said, I don't write a speech. And then they said, can I see, your outline or whatever? And then they see, 5 little scribbled lines. And it's like, that's it? But the point is, those are my points. And I understand how to get from one point to another, so I don't have to write it down. Anyway, back to the negotiation game. Honda versus Harley Davidson. Very interesting premise. You have Honda, who cannot sell a big bike. So all of a sudden, Harley Davidson becomes very attractive to them. On the other hand, Harley Davidson is a company that's just in a lot of trouble right now because they're losing money, they have an aging brand, and they don't know what to do. They tried to go modern with an electric bike and nobody would buy it. Nobody wants electric. I mean, it's called a hog. It's called a hog for a reason. And so here you have 2 companies with needs. And what price are they going to negotiate? Now, you have a lot of different options on how you want to do this. You could do this over, now you've got till the 26th, so you could do this over a period of days and just have, do it on Slack. The thing is, if you're part of the same team, you probably want to send messages and talk to each other instead of just individually diving into it because somebody might say something that gets you into trouble. Or you can use a discussion board and do it that way. The only thing I ask is just print out the transcript at the end and turn that in and just tell me what the conclusion was if it's not clear. The easiest way to do it is if you can do it on Zoom. And I know that's a bigger pain in the ass, but it's a lot less time because you probably can get the negotiation over with in 30 to 40 minutes. At least that's how long previous classes have taken. And if it drags out too long, more than an hour and a half, it's okay to say, this negotiation is over. We would continue, but this could take days. Anyway, if you have any questions about the negotiation, it's fun. And it's really funny because what do I say about stories? It's about acting. And some of them really get into it. And so Harley Davidson's really funny. Some of the students said, why on earth would we want your frou-frou bike? And, the Honda people are there you're an ugly American and an old dinosaur and things like that. negotiations can get personal. Anyway, and I apologize if I offended anybody. I'm deep down American, born in Nebraska, raised in New Jersey. Anyway, we're now getting into storytelling. We are now getting into the meat of the class. And all storytelling is about is those 2 slides. And so the rest of it is all about technique and to give you ideas, and it's about flow, and it's about word economy. But what it comes down to is once you have a story, then you have to edit. And editing is precision and takes time. The thing about the humanities is everybody thinks it's just, like jazz. You just make it up as you go along. And no, it's actually quite technical. And hopefully that'll come across. Because if it wasn't technical, then nobody could be a good storyteller. Now, of course, some people will become better storytellers than others. What it comes down to is your commitment to telling stories. My wife and I are both people watchers, and it's really funny. We used to sit in airports, and then we point to someone and say, okay, what's his story? Or we used to play fashion police. It's like, okay, what grade would you give that woman? Why is she dressed that way? And yeah, we used to do goofy things like that. But anyway, if you have any questions, please let me know. Oh, I forgot. I'm going to give you another option. If you do not want to tell the story of your success and failure, what I want you to do is your story. Imagine that I'm an employer and I say, tell me about yourself. So right away, remember, time is one of the variables, and it's on the page. You've got maybe about 3 minutes to tell a story. Now, of course, if it's an interesting story and compelling, then it can be longer. But there are very few people who can do that. I can't do that. And so, what story are you going to tell me? How am I going to learn about you? How are you going to connect with me? And so that's another option. And the reason why I switched it to that, granted, it's much shorter for a prime one, and I probably should have 2 different exercises. But this is the first semester of this class. We're just spitballing and riffing right here until we can get it right. Anyway, the reason why I want you to do that is someday you're going to get in front of an employer and they're going to ask you that question. Now, you don't want to be too polished because then they think, oh, you're just reciting a speech. But on the other hand, you want to be prepared too. So there's kind of a balancing act there. And the one thing is when you watch the speech by Steve Jobs, Jobs is reading off a script, but he comes across as very natural. He understands how to project without making it sound like it's too mechanical. And that's why the Apple plenary talks every year were just legend. I mean, millions of people around the globe, some would stay up to like 3 a.m. to be able to watch that. And that's how compelling a speaker Jobs was. And here's an example. Students come to me all the time. And they come to me and say, Dr. Cho, I don't know how to talk about myself. And then I just sit there and said, tell me your story. And so there was one student who actually came from Liberia. And he told me that Liberia is much different than the United States, that in Liberian culture, if you're the baby of the family, in the United States, you get doted on. On the other hand, in Liberia, if you're the youngest, you get dumped on. Your older siblings feel like, hey, I paid my dues, now you got to go pay yours. And so it's tough. And so he always had to do a lot of work growing up because he was the baby of his family. And he wants to become a project manager because he likes doing projects. And I said, you have a fantastic story. Now, of course, who you are comes out in your storytelling. And the question becomes, how big a risk do you want to take? But I told him, I would probably say this. I was the runt of my family. And I loved it. See, in Liberia, It's much different than the United States. In the United States, if you're the baby of the family, then people just dote on you. On the other hand, in Liberia, if you're the youngest one, you get dumped on. But I loved it. And I loved it because I like doing work. I like doing things. And from a very young age, what did I do when I had work? I figured out how to organize it. How do I use my resources most effectively? How much time do I have to do something? What are things I can put in parallel that are in series to make it easier for me? So I was a natural project manager. It's the culture I was raised in. And then as I went through more jobs and did more things, I just loved the entire adventure of project managing. And I would love to take on that opportunity and share with you what I can do with your company. Now, okay, maybe you're not the kind of person to throw the word love around or something like that, but if you know it, I tend to low-key it. And why am I using the word love? Because I'm trying to make a point. It's a powerful word. Anyway, if you have any questions, please let me know, and have a great week.